Alright, sorry about this, and sorry about any banging that you hear in the background. My neighbors are back at it again with the same exact song. Anyway, in this video I'm going to be going over characters, proxies, linking in scenes, and maybe a couple of side notes about how we'll do it in Pipeline, but that's a side note. I'll try to be quick with this one. Something that I failed to mention before was that in any single one of these channels, except for, I believe, camera stuff, you can dynamically or animate the values. So if I go in here and I add a, a bevel modifier, and I was to increase the offset here and then create a keyframe on it. So by pressing I over top of whatever channel it is, you can create a keyframe. Then moving forward, I can change it. I can press I again. So now you can see that that's animated. If I click on the object, these appear as animation tabs. And of course, clicking on one, you can see that only one is highlighted and it's being changed. Anyway, so let's go through, let's find and link the scene, and then link the character, make a proxy, and start animating a little bit. And that's when I'll show you the two different, two different add-ons that I'm using. Of course, they'll be linked in a message attached to this video, and I already went over the licensing of it. Basically, GPL licensing, you pay for download, and whenever I find an add-on to be very useful, I usually buy multiple copies of it to compensate the author. But I always pay for it at least once. Anyway, so in order to create a link for it, this will change as we make sure everybody has the same manager installed, and finished assets will be brought in that way for layout. But for scenes and for characters, what you have to do is you have to go to File, Link. I'm trying to work with Sam Simple Asset Manager person, but I haven't gotten a response back. Anyway, so to get to where the scene files are, you go to SEG Dropbox, SEG Project. You won't have that here. You have to go through and navigate to find the SEG Dropbox. I usually find it's under C users, whatever your username is, and then navigating to SEG Dropbox. Opening that SEG Dropbox file, and if you never want to navigate to this again, you can just press Add Bookmark, and you can see that it adds a bookmark wherever that is, or wherever you currently are in the file structure. Pressing minus, of course, removes it. You can select one, you can also raise it and lower it. Anyway, so opening up the SEG, opening up the core, assembly, scenes, test scenes. Okay, so in here we have our layout scenes. So these are the initial layout blockout scenes. Then we have animation and lighting scenes. When you animate, you're going to be saving all your files within this animation folder, and any work in progresses, you'll have a different folder inside of it. Anyway, that's macro level stuff, and don't worry about that for now. So entering layout, we can find Cindy, and if we just try to link the entire file, we can see that we go into this other file structure. .blends are actually a collection of files and individual objects that are all linked to each other in different ways and with different descriptors attached to them. So, with that in mind, each one of those objects is called a data block. I won't go into exactly how it all works, but yeah. So what we want from Cindy's, because we're trying to grab the layout, I'm going to go into Cindy's. Cindy's is currently the only one that's set up completely correctly. I'm going to go under Collection, and I'm going to find the blockout collection that has an asterisk next to it. It's most likely going to be the one on the very top. By clicking Link, you can see that our scene is now placed in. Don't worry about this camera. This won't be there in finished versions. So now that we have this object in and we try to move anything, you can see that everything is constrained by that. I would ask that you do not make a proxy of any one of these scenes. And something that I forgot to mention to Cindy as well was that if we have any walls or ceilings, please make them separate collections so that's easier for the animators to work. Anyway, applying our camera in here, you can see that the basics of the scene are laid out. There's a couple of height issues, but she's going to be working on that pretty soon from what I understand. Alright, so now that we have our scene inside of here, or our blockout scene at the very least inside of here, we're going to go to File, Link, and once again we're going to go through and link another area. For me, I've added a quick selection thing so I can instantly go to the scene folder, and anyway, navigating back to the Dropbox folder, going to Seg Project, Core, Completed Assets, Test Character Asset. And you can either choose the male or the female. I'm going to choose the female right here and click Link. Once again, you don't have to click Link, you can just double click on it. Collection, Test Anim Character Female. This will be renamed, but it should be something fairly obviously named and should have a star next to it. I'm going to press Link. You can see now that we have a character at the very center. If I press period to focus on it, you can see that it's a female character rigged up. However, clicking on it and trying to move it around, you can see that this character is not active. That's because we have to create a proxy of it. Linking objects in is a simple thing. However, being able to modify this rig and being able to animate it is something different, unfortunately. However, by linking in, any updates that are made to the mesh or to the rig should apply to this and the proxy. So how do we make this, almighty proxy? Well, I should probably also say that proxies are basically ghost versions of the item that you're trying to manipulate. So if I go to Object, Relations, Make Proxy, this is with the entire thing selected. By clicking Make Proxy, it'll bring up this menu. And in this menu, you need to navigate down to whatever the rig is named. The rig should be named more properly, but I believe in this. It is named Female Character. There we go. So we've created a proxy of the rig. So now over here, if we kind of click on this, this will mess up because we have two different things in the same place. But if we go down here and click Proxy, you can see that now we have the character able to animate, or at least able to be moved around. I'm going to quickly move this object, or move this character into the basics of the scene, and from here you can kind of see that there's some height issues with the table. Scaling issues, Let me quickly check something. Yes, our character is the correct height. Are we using imperial units? We are using imperial units. That is odd. The character is the correct height and the environment is not. I'll have to look into this, and by the time this video is put out, it'll be fixed. And whatever issue should be fixed for anything in the future. This could be a problem of just the incorrect units being used, namely metric instead of imperial. Or it could be, yes, I believe it's most likely to use a metric instead of imperial. Anyway, with this now relationally to the scene, child-sized person, we can go in here, and by clicking up here, we can go into pose mode. So now the character, all the actions and everything have colors. From here, what we can do is we can go through and we can start animating the character like you would with any other rig. So of course, just positioning it, pressing I, and then you can do location and rotation. And you can just mess with all that sort of stuff through here and go through and start defining different poses and different motions. I'm just going to enable auto key so I can quickly correct that. And so now you can see that the character is moving. If I press play, this is a lot slower than our frame count will tell us it is. For now, we're just going to be relying on the default 24 frames a second, so you don't have to change anything within settings for animation. However, this is not going at 24 frames a second. I think this is going at more like 30 or 40 frames a second. Or not 30 or 40, I mean 15 frames a second. So, just to do it, once again, as I mentioned before, you can go to playback, no sync, frame dropping. And so now, it should be dropping frames to keep this 24 frames a second mark. You can see up here, this little thing tells you whether or not it's dropping frames or not. Some different notes about this rig. This rig is kind of special and very complex. This is an auto rig thing. Comes pre-installed with Blender, so I just positioned some bones, pressed a couple of buttons, had to go through and change a couple of settings. But from here, if I go down, if I press N, let me quickly enable, I keep forgetting to do this, enable screencast keys. And if I go up to Tool, or sorry, not Tool, View, it's one of these. I'm sorry, I have a lot of different add-ons installed, so they all pop up here. Oh, right, what's happening here is that a script that came with this character is not being run at the moment. So to fix this, what I have to do is I have to go to this editor, text editor, navigate down, and you'll see L for linked, female character UI, whatever. If you open that up, you can see that this massive script runs, and this script is that comes with this character. If I simply expand this a little bit, I can click Run Script, and when I run script, you can see that under Item, all these rig layers buttons come up. Excuse me. This is per rig, so if you're animating multiple characters within the same scene, it'll pop up. Anyway, so these buttons are just quick buttons that allow us to see and hide different objects. So you can see root was hidden, and now I can move around the root of the character. Just a different animation tip. You never want to animate the root of the character unless you're cutting scenes, cameras, or if the character moves off screen. You almost always want to animate the character by their primary controls. This is because if you want to change the speed of a walk flow, you can just simply grab all of the frames of the character and just condense all of them. However, there are a lot of specific use cases, but trust me, by not animating this root, you are going to be saving yourself many things. Anyway, now that we have the character positioned, I'll hide the root. And now with other stuff selected, I can get this back. You can see that you have the snapping of FK to IK and IK to FK. So if I move this hand here, you can see that this is the FK controller. If I press FK to IK, it'll snap to here. And then I can go through and I can click the button which says that FK should be used instead of IK. Anyway, so just going through and hiding and showing different things. I can hide the torso tweak, but keep the torso. So if I go into wireframe mode, I can do this. I can hide the fingers, or I can hide the fingers FK, and I can go through hide different FK and IK buttons. So, yeah. Use these as you will, and I look forward to seeing what you animate initially. So you can see right here, I can just go through here and rotate this controller to rotate the legs or rotate the arms. Personally, I don't like this system, but for some people it may work better, for some scenes it may work better. When we do custom rigs, we'll be using a ball as a pointer instead of this, because this can give slightly odd results at times. Anyway, I think I'd better go into, what's the word, with Breakdowner and the other two add-ons. So now, whatever I'm going to say will be based off of those two add-ons. So, well, I mean, not from here on. I mean, some of the basic stuff you'll have. But anyway, so I'm just going to go in here, animate for this foot controller, lock rotation at scale, and then for here, I'm going to bring foot up, and I'm going to press lock at scale. I'm not trying to animate anything. I'm just trying to do something. So let me also put in, for this at whatever frame, insert, lock at scale, and rotate it. Controls for this can be kind of weird if you're not looking directly at it, or just weird in general. That's why I mainly don't like these. Anyway, insert, rotation. So now you can see that we have movement, we have rotation, we have whatever. I should have been selecting everything and doing everything along specific pose points, but anyway, or specific extremes. Anyway, so from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to Motion Trail 3D, and this is where Motion Trail 3D comes in. I'm going to press Motion Trail and Preview End. I'm just going to put at 80. Press OK. And so now you can see that a motion trail is made and controllers are made as well. So from here, you can grab these controllers and you can move them around, and that'll move the location of where the foot ends up. This is very similar to Maya's animation controllers. However, or Maya's interactive curve controllers. However, this also gives you Bezier functionality within the viewport and markates time, as you can see with these dots. So if I quickly duplicate my window, and I'm going to go over to the graph editor. With the foot selected here, if I can go through and select the foot again, this is an odd little thing, I may have to go into wireframe to be able to select it. And to go into pose mode, if I select everything, and I go to V and change it from automatic to, I believe, aligned or anything else, what I can do is I can grab these inner circular controllers and I can start messing with all of that sort of stuff. So if I want, the foot can go out within an arc like this. If I turn on time handles as well, I can go through here and I can actually move the keyframes like that. And I believe, yep, I can adjust it a little bit more with these two. It should be visually obvious what's happening, but I would highly recommend that you play around with it. I can also turn on identity handle, but that doesn't really tell you much. I don't find it useful. Anyway, so I'm just going to turn off these time handles and keep these handles on. And you can see now how this can be an extremely useful thing to have when playing with arcs. However, there are two different mindsets when it comes to doing animation. There's people that like to use a lot of wide arcs and doing everything like this. And then there are people that like to go through and do initial extremes, breakdowns, and going through on the micro level and just animating everything with tweens and all that sort of stuff. It's going to be up to you to decide what exactly you want to do with that. I should also mention very quickly that these fingers, to do the last two joints, you press S to scale everything, and then to do the last one, you can rotate the joints like that. If you want to scale all of these, let me go into layout. I believe I can do something very simple so that I can't click the background. Let's see. I'm an idiot. It's right here, and I always lose it. Data, outliner. If I go up here and I click on this little icon right here, I can turn on one of these restriction toggles, and I can turn off the selection of not this, but the blockout. So now you can see that within the viewport, I cannot select the blockout. Anyway, that just makes our job a little bit easier, hopefully. This is kind of annoying. I'm not sure why exactly that's happening, and I'll submit a bug report and see exactly why that's happening. Anyway, so pressing scale, you can see something odd happens. The central location of all these is being scaled down together. What you want to do is you want to go up to here. This is how your object edits, and go to individual origins. And so now when I press scale, they all scale individually on their own axis. Press rotate X twice, I can now rotate them all together on their own individual axis. So you can see like that, and then I can just go through and I can start tweaking the ones that don't exactly work. Interesting. I'm also going to, for this blockout, I'm going to make that unselectable. And let's see if that works. Oh, cool. Okay, so having both the character mesh and the environment unselectable fixes that issue that we were having. Anyway, you can kind of see how this can be used. Alright, hopefully the next video that I put out for animation will be a lot of the conceptual stuff and different workflows that people go through, and how I would at least ask that you try once or twice observing the reference videos that you make. For assignments, I would ask that you go and talk to Rada. Right, I've got a meeting in 15 minutes. I ask that you talk to Rada because it may or may not change per person, and we may or may not want to do that. But as I said before, the scaling of this scene will be fixed next time that you open it and use it. My apologies, because I did not check the units that were being used. Oh, I'm sorry, one last thing. Breakdowner. Breakdowner is just a simple onion skinning thing, which goes in between the first and last points, the previous and next point. So you can see right here, by pressing Control E, I can go in between those 2 points, and I can just quickly see the motion. If I zoom in to the scene, if I press Alt-T, break down with Visual Guide, that's what we're doing right now. If I press Alt-T, show Visual Guide, it should have shown the previous and next ones. Interesting. I'm going to do a little bit of experimentation and see exactly what's going wrong here. But you can see the basic functionality of just pressing Control E. What should be happening is that 2 different ghosts should be appearing of the character through their motion. But it is not happening, and that's kind of odd. Anyway, I'm going to leave this to you now and hopefully put out that video in a few minutes. Thank you.